Okay, are we live? Yes, looks like we are live. Greetings, everyone. Salutations to all my followers of darkness, shadows, scavengers, and villainy aficionados. Welcome, bienvenue to one of my good old villain review episodes. I'm your host, Lauro Shadows, and this time, this is gonna be from a real interesting discussion for me because this time I'm going to review a villain from my personal opinion, in very underrated TV show, by the way, called Sym-Bionic Titan. More precisely, I'm going to talk about the TV show's main villain, General Modula. And again, for this particular villain, it's going to be a very interesting discussion, a very interesting one, But with all the cards that have been dealt with, I'm going to try to do my best. So, without any further interruptions, let's go. So, basically, the history of the villain. So, as I mentioned before, General Modula is a character that comes from the Sym-Bionic Titan TV show created by Genndy Tartakovsky himself. If you don't know who he is, he was behind the Dexter's Laboratory, Samurai Jack, and the Hotel Transylvania movies. Now, so basically, General Modula is the main villain of the show. He was basically this, general of the Galilean army, like a humanoid aliens that lived somewhere across the galaxy. And then one point during a very violent battle against some aliens called the Mutrati, basically General Modula was thought to be dead. And then basically and then at one point, he basically comes back from his grave, quote unquote, and turn evil and decide to basically get his revenge on the Galilean Empire because of this belief that that he was left behind and everything, even after the king and everyone else thought he was dead. And that's basically who General Modula is. Now, the character himself, the character himself, I mean, first and foremost, he's overall design is very simple, if I have to put it that way. His overall design, since when the first time I saw him, he kind of reminded me of those one of those Army Confederate officers during the American Civil War, because the type of uniform he had, the collar and everything, especially with the hat, it really reminded me of. He really reminded me of the Confederate Army from the American Civil War, So basically, when you see him as a character, he's basically, looks and acts like a soldier, from like I said, from the mannerisms, from the, the overall description, the personality, the skills, everything basically leans towards the, military elements, when it comes to General Modula's character. Now, as I mentioned before, this character, he was in battle against, he was like a general in the Galilean Empire for many years. He served under the king and of course the princess as well. And basically, after this, like I said, violent battle against the Mutrati, he was hit by, I think, a Mutrati gun blast or something. And basically, everyone thought, that General Modula was dead. And when they decided to retreat, they left him for dead, because they thought he was, literally dead. And then basically all of a sudden, he comes back from the grave and, conquers Galilona, I mean, it's very interesting. The guy, when you see him in the flashbacks, the guy literally was this sweet, sweet, kind, compassionate, by the book, military character, who loved his job, who respected and loved the king, loved the princess, he loved his people. And then basically after one single event in a war, he comes back totally different. A character, a villain, a guy who's filled with anger and hatred and thirst for vengeance, and feeling being thrown away like a piece of trash or something. Like I said, the feeling of being left behind, as he basically, put it, and now, and all of a sudden, that's what I was kind of interested as well. it was kind of interesting as well. And all of a sudden, even like hungry for power. It kind of makes you feel like like I said, General Modula's character is very interesting because it makes you feel like the guy, it's like it's literally like it's like when I see General Modula, it's like I'm watching to a character who has split personality. One is like this like very kind general whatever character, and then all of a sudden like he's this like hardcore cold hardcore cold-hearted uh, like brutal villain who wants to conquer a kingdom, take over the empire, being king and everything, like commanding everyone with terror and tyranny and everything, tyranny and everything. Like all this basically came out of nowhere, so that's kind of, so that always kind of makes me interested, because the thing is, I was wondering, like, because I mean, one of the reasons when you see like a villain's origin, one of the reasons when a character becomes a villain, being left behind because either they didn't want to save him, or they thought the character was dead, or they thought like he was basically lost or captured, or basically like those are elements that kind of can turn anyone into a villain as well, because like you have this feeling, like Modula did, being left behind, being thought of, that they didn't care about him, that he's basically just a piece of trash, they just simply thrown out, in the garbage chute or something. Like, yeah, those are kind of elements that kind of lead to that, too. But there's also so much about General Modula's character that I always found very intriguing, because like, I don't know, every time when I see him, it's something like, really, I don't know, how can I put this? It makes me feel like there's something fishy going on, because like from a person he was in the flashbacks, now that's like a big transformation. It's like literally going from like 1% to like 100, right off the, right from the beginning. So, very strange. But anyway, I will talk about this, like my overall thoughts and theories. I know I kind of been going all over the place, but like I'll try to discuss about the character for what we know right now. So basically, okay, so what we know about General Modula, as a villain, what we have in front of us. Basically, we have this, fallen military character who basically took over an empire, who became the ruler of Galalona, this planet, or slash empire or whatever. He is like utterly ruthless, cold-hearted. Like he has no empathy, no kindness, no compassion. And of course he hates when his own people, disappoint him. Like we've seen, like a couple of times, when every time when someone fails him, or like for example. Like usually what he does throughout the show is like basically he sends a Mutrati to capture beasts, and basically to teleport him basically all the way across the galaxy to planet Earth, try to destroy, try to kill Princess Ilana and her friends. And every time of course the beasts have been destroyed, they've been defeated, and then basically what General Modula does, he fucking kills this Mutrati, one by one. He fucking killed them because he is a type of villain which is, again, very traditional, but he's the type of villain who hates disappointments, who hates failures, and of course what he does in return, he, like I said, he fucking annihilates basically the people that he condemn as like the guilty ones, the reason why those beasts failed, and everything, and also, I mean, I'm kind of curious about this character, like because like again, even though he took over Galalona, he took over like the entire empire, he took over from the throne of the, he took it from the king, the throne and everything, so basically the guy's literally in charge. But of course, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. But basically, to make sure that no one would challenge his power, basically, he sent beast after beast after beast after beast. He sent hundreds of beasts to Earth to try to destroy the princess, because like I said, he doesn't want anyone to challenge his power, but at the same time, he wants, this elements of hope. He wants to crush the spirit of the people's spirit, in Galilona, basically, and of course, what better way to do it than kill the princess, the only remaining heir to the throne. So, and basically, it's kind of weird because every time, basically he sends beast after beast after beast after beast, he sends after them, and basically, it's been, if I have to quote Deadpool, it's been a miss after miss after miss and after miss, basically, and of course the Motrati, they've been losing in numbers, because Modula has been killing them one by one because of disappointments, because of the failure and everything, but but basically, besides that, like I said, if I have to categorize Modula, as Modula as a villain, I mean, what the better thing I can do is basically I would describe him as a sort of a fallen warlord, basically, I mean, that's the best way how I would describe him, but but overall, I still find him, interesting, even though again, there's a lot of elements that kind of sound fishy to me. But for what have we got, basically, because the TV show has been canceled after just one season, which is a fucking shame, because that show is really had a lot of potential. And I'm by the way, I'm really hoping that Tartakovsky will bring back the show, because the way how it ended, I need to know how basically the overall story is going to go after season 1. But overall, the character himself, like I said, he's a fallen warlord. He's basically, has no mercy, no kindness, no compassion. He's straight up, cold as ice. He doesn't which again is very traditional with, he doesn't like failures. He doesn't like when his henchmen fail him. He's a very typical military villain, basically. Now, but the strength and weaknesses, I mean, what else? I mean, what can I say? We just kind of outside the obvious, which of course, is he has, like I said, he has military knowledge, leadership. He's shown because of his hat. He's shown, powers of telepathy. He has, he has his skills in combat, especially in hand-to-hand combat. He also has some I would even call generating supernatural kind of as a skill, because I've seen that throughout the show a few times. Also, with everything what we see, I can also add he has superhuman supernatural strength, speed, stamina, and the last thing I can say is supernatural. He's supernaturally athletic. I just put it that way. I mean, the way. I mean, I remember there was one scene in the Sym-Bionic Titan episode where basically you have the remaining troops of the king trying to to save the king and basically destroy Modula. And even though again, General Modula throughout the entire show, usually General Modula, he's usually the type of villain that he sits on his ass on the throne and basically, he lets the Motrati and everyone else, do his business. But I will admit there are times where he actually gets his hands dirty, and I respect villains like that, because at first you think like I said, okay, he's this fallen warlord, who craves power, who's basically sitting on a throne and he basically orders around and doesn't do shit. But no, he fucking killed all those remaining troopers by himself. I mean, oh my God, the way how he went through them very quickly. Jeez, it was impressive. It was very impressive. And that's one of the things I have to tell about, Modula, and that is definitely, he's a type of villain who even he can get his own hands dirty. Now, besides, the overall skills I mentioned, I mean, for what I can else say, what else can I say about him? Which kind of also leads more towards the weakness part. But basically, even though, like I said, he has some kind of a high level intellect, I would, I'll give him that. He has military knowledge, like I mentioned before. But if we're talking like the villain side of Modula, he's basically at times he's basically he can be overconfident at times. Like for example, when he was like before he snapped one of the troopers' necks, he basically when the trooper said one way or another we're gonna stop you, and he's like maybe but not today. Crack! He snapped his neck like it was a like it was a toothpick. But at that point, when the way he said like maybe but not today, maybe someday but not today, the way he said it and that smirk, it kind of makes you feel like that there is some like overconfidence in him, also, which kind of also goes towards arrogance, because the way because like the way how for example, he underestimated at first, like he underestimated the princess. As the story goes on, he underestimated her and her friends. More and more and more as the story progressed. But also at the same time, like I said, you have overconfidence, you have arrogance. Underestimating the heroes, which again, all three of them are very like traditional villain weaknesses, basically. But also at the same time, I mean, there are at points where he kind of like, is delusional a little bit. And also at the same time, there's also a little bit of ego in his character, basically, especially when he's like, having this like, royally, presence, basically, especially like when he was visiting a lab of the Mutrati, trying to get a new beast, basically, like you kind of feel that he is trying to impose this like royal presence, basically, like which also kind of leads me to that he's also a little bit delusional, but so basically the weaknesses when it comes to him, because again we haven't seen him fight, basically we haven't seen him fight the main characters, we haven't seen him fight at all, with the exception of when he was fighting those troopers, but basically we haven't seen him do much anything, because like unfortunately, like I said, in the in like the first season he was only in it for 8 episodes, from like all 20 together. So he didn't have much to do, basically. He just he was basically there like just simply talk, punish, find a new beast, saying something like basically also interrogating the king, about the princess, so basically it was all a lot of the moments that he had besides that against the troopers thing, it was basically all monologue. It was basically all monologue, planning, scheming, that sort of thing. So overall, now speaking of like of course the villain's goal, his goal basically was take over Galaluna, the planet and the empire, which of course I will give him credit, he was successful. And also the second part of his goal is basically, like I said, kill the princess, to basically crush the spirit of the people of Galalona, and also make sure that that there are no rebellions rising, or even like if there's a possibility that the princess is coming back to take over the throne, basically, so, and so basically, in which also in some capacity, I will give him credit. Like, he's trying to think about everything, because like, you can see that he knew that as long as the princess is alive, there is a chance that, his wheels might turn, but at the same time, I mean, again, I will give him that, but like at the same time, also you can see that, like, that fear, like even though the fear is very, very like weak in a way, it wasn't shown that much, but but you can feel like he was a little bit afraid, and a little bit not afraid, worried. Actually, I would use that word. He was worried, basically. He would be worried, if like finally that he took the throne, that someone else will come back, basically kick his ass and take the throne. But again, so even though I will say this, like the type of goals that he has are basically very like again, I would kind of go put him in the category of like classic villain goals, because like General Modula, being a warlord, he's basically also a conqueror, and all the two things, all the two goals that he had are basically a goal of a conqueror. Conquering a kingdom and make sure that there is no heir to the throne. Make sure that he can rule, its people, the army, and everything. And of course, in the same way, make sure that no one will come after him. So again, very conquering elements when it comes to the villain's goal. So but even still, what he was able to accomplish, even though with a little amount of screen time, what he was able to accomplish, I give him respect for that. I respect him for that, for sure. Now, with everything being said, about General Modula, here's a question I had, because, like I said, the season, we only had one season, and after that, the show has been unfortunately canceled. So we never, so far we have for I think it was until 2011, I think. Now we're in 2025. That means 14 years, basically. So there's been 14 years since the show was canceled, and we never find out the ending of the story. So in my villains review, I'm gonna add this a little bit, which is, of course, is Modula the real deal or a pawn? Because like I mentioned before, with everything going on in his origin story, it is a very usual thing, where basically, you're being loyal to, let's just say, in this case, a kingdom. You've been loyal to a kingdom. You've been loyal to the king, to all the people of, in this case, Galalona, and basically, the feeling of being, like I said, left behind, left for dead, being not, for example, not sending a search party or trying to rescue him or her, or trying to see if they're, if the Modula in this case is really dead. It could lead into this villain turn, basically, in which basically everything they were before, it's all gone, it doesn't exist anymore. Now basically, now from all the kindness and compassion, everything that he had, he turned into a villain, because filled with sadness and anger and hatred and the desire for revenge, because of everything because of leaving him behind. Again, that could be true. That could be true. That could be the real deal. But at the same time, is it a real deal? Because again, I cannot connect. Like I told you, this is one part of this particular villain's review that's going to be very interesting. But I want to briefly talk about it. Again, it could be the real deal, with the whole thing that Modula said to the king, left me behind. But at the same time, it doesn't make any sense, because when you see him in the flashbacks and see him now, they're complete opposite of each other. Complete opposite. And for me personally, that type of origin story, usually it's not a very easy turn. You don't get turned so quickly. So here's my guess. So could be, for example, that the Motrati are using him as a pawn. I mean, think about it. Because they've been defeated by the Galalona Empire, and and of course, they're trying to basically strike back, and of course they thought the Motrati could easily think hey, what better way to do it than one of their own, so let's use this General Modula guy, so in that way we can break into the Galalona, capital and destroy it, and conquer the entire planet. I'm telling you, that could easily happen. So the question is, okay, so if they're using him like a pawn, because the way how he talks, the way how he was during the show, it doesn't seem like, that the Motrati were manipulating him, trying to change his point of views and ideas, telling me the Galalona Empire abandoned you, you were nothing. After everything you've done for them, this is the way how they treat you. This is the thanks you get. You should get back on them, You should get revenge, I don't think that's the situation. I think in this case, if, let's just say for this, if he is actually dead. That means that some supernatural capacity, the Mutrati are using his body, as kind of like sort of like a puppet, basically, And the thing the hat that he has on his head is either Mutrati who took the shape of the hat to control him, to control his dead body, or he could be brainwashed. Think about it. Like, okay, they thought he was dead, but he was actually knocked out. Like, for example, what if that blast that the king was mentioning, what if that blast wasn't actually a killing blow? What if it was a blow that stunned him? Just for the right moment for the other people from Galilona and the king to believe he was dead. So they stunned him. They took his body back to their home and brainwash him. I think like that could be also a solution. They could they could easily brainwash him, turning basically into turning him against everything he stood for. Turn it against him, and basically going after Galilona and everyone else, like a completely different person. That could be the case as well. Or the third option could be he's mind controlled. That could also be an option. That he is basically mind controlled, and the thing on the hat is basically something they put on him to control him. I can even bet that when they took him, I think they took him. He was still alive, and I think I can even see in they were trying to basically before they took let's just say basically we can do it the easy way or the hard way. I think what might have happened, again, I don't know the story, I don't know what Tartakovsky was trying to say, but what if they took him to their home, they tortured him, let's just say for a long period of time. They tortured him because they tried to get the information out of him, but of course he was loyal to Galilona, so he didn't say anything. But then they were like, desperate times goes for drastic measures. And then you can put the story, they brainwashed him, or they mind controlling him, or, they're literally controlling his dead body. Like, it could be anything. Or again, it could be a real deal. I could be, that he took left him behind. He took it very personally, and now he's basically getting revenge. He's getting, his revenge against the king and everyone else. That, so again, that's why I said, is it the real deal or a pawn? But so far, okay, so now when it comes to the overall rating, okay, so with the rating. Now, General Modula, with everything what we've seen, like I said, he's a very typical military / warlord, type of character who gets, who's, like I said, he is very cold-hearted, has no mercy, no kindness, no compassion. He killed the remaining troopers like it was nothing, with no mercy or anything. He takes no bullshit from the Mutradi. He hates failure, he hates disappointments, and of course, that hunger for power that he possesses and everything. So, with that, even though, again, some people might say, he deserves the rating a little bit lower. But for what we got, for what we got in season 1, I will give him a proper 7 out of 10. Some people might think even though we barely scratched the surface of the General Modula character. But in this case, I was like, I'll be gracious, and I'll give him a 7 out of 10. Because he proved himself through like this, his appearances and his actions. He proved himself to be for future storytelling. He would have proven himself to be a worthy opponent against the princess and her friends. I can even see them having a really tough time beating him, because sure, they somehow beat in the end all those monsters, but beating him, especially what he did with those troopers, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be really, really tough. But overall, I think with everything what he did, from getting, successfully, taking over the Galilona Empire, and also trying to, basically have this like, plan to basically to keep everyone in line in Galilona. The only way to kill, the only way to do it is to kill the princess. The way how he tortured the king, all his other actions and everything, and planning and scheming. I think a 7 out of 10 is a pretty solid, rating for someone like General Modula. So overall, I'm gonna give him a 7 out of 10 Shadows. Yeah. And with that, we came to the end to another villains review episode. Man, like I said, man, I really enjoyed doing this particular villain, because like for him, I knew it was gonna be a very special conversation. So overall, here I am done, guys. You guys, you all know the drill. Like the video, comment, subscribe, give me all personal thoughts about General Modula, about him as a villain, what you thought of him. If you ever watched Sym-Bionic Titan TV show, everything in the comment section down below. Also, if you're interested to see previous episodes from Villains Review Season 2 or Season 1, they're going to be in the video description down below as well. So like always, stay tuned for more videos. Lord of Shadows, like always, signing off. See you guys next time, or as I love to say it, later, fuckers.